Have you ever imagined what an unbeatable defense feels like? A wall that no one can break down? Well, we're talking about the most dominant defenses in Ravens history, a true fortress that has turned Baltimore into a nightmare for opponents over the years. But what made this defense so powerful? How did it stay on top, even with legends retiring and new challenges arising? In today's video, you'll uncover the secrets behind this iron wall and why it continues to be one of the biggest forces in the NFL. Stay with me until the end, because you'll understand how the Ravens managed, year after year, to be the most feared defense in the league. Go Ravens! The Ravens were born in 1996, but even before stepping onto the field, the franchise had a clear goal: to build a team that would demand respect. Unlike many teams that sought offensive stars to shine, Baltimore decided that their trademark would be defense. The idea was simple: if the opponent can't score, they can't win. And that's how the foundation of the Wall of Baltimore began to be built, brick by brick, with a mentality focused on aggression, discipline, and physical strength. The first key piece of this project was Ray Lewis, selected in the 1996 draft. From day one, he showed he wasn't just any player. His instinct for anticipating plays, his explosiveness in tackles, and most importantly, his leadership on and off the field, made him the true pillar of the defense. Alongside him, other names like Peter Boulware and Rod Woodson helped transform Baltimore into a team no one wanted to face. It wasn't just about talent, but about a culture being built. A defense that played with maximum intensity on every single play. This defensive identity didn't just emerge because of the players, but also because of the coaches. The first great architect of this mentality was Marvin Lewis, the defensive coordinator who arrived in 1996 and established an aggressive, well-structured system. He organized the defense in a way that the players were always in the right place, ready to attack the opponent mercilessly. This scheme not only helped the Ravens grow, but also served as a foundation for everything that would come the following years. The Ravens' mentality was clear: being a dominant defense required more than talent. It needed discipline, communication, and an uncontrollable will to physically overpower the opponents. This philosophy turned Baltimore into one of the toughest teams in the NFL, with a defense that didn't just make good plays, but terrified opposing offenses. Playing against the Ravens meant leaving bruised, worn out, and most of the time, with very few points on the scoreboard. As the years went by, the Wall of Baltimore began to symbolize the franchise. The team might have had struggles on offense, but the defense was always a fortress. The fans embraced this identity, transforming M&T Bank Stadium into a true cauldron, where opponents knew they would face a hostile environment. Being a Ravens defender meant carrying this responsibility, stepping onto the field with a mission to keep this tradition alive and continue imposing respect. But it wasn't enough just to build a strong defense. For this identity to be fully cemented, a defining moment was needed. A season where the Ravens would show the world that their defense wasn't just good, but historic. That moment came in the year 2000, when Baltimore built a defensive unit so dominant that it is still considered one of the greatest of all time. The defense of 2000 was the ultimate proof that the Ravens' identity was complete. But what made this group so special? How did they manage numbers that seem impossible even today? If there was any doubt about the Ravens' identity as a defensive team, the 2000 season completely ended any questioning. Baltimore didn't just have a strong defense. They had one of the most dominant defenses in NFL history. They allowed only 165 points over 16 games, a record that still stands today. To put this into perspective, that same season, the average points allowed by NFL defenses was 324. The Ravens essentially cut that average in half, making every game a true nightmare for opposing offenses. The secret to this dominance was in every layer of the defense. The defensive line, anchored by Tony Siragusa and Sam Adams, was a true wall against the running game. Any running back who tried to break through this duo quickly realized there was no space. Right behind them, Ray Lewis led the linebackers with an impeccable reading of the game, anticipating plays, as if he knew exactly what the opposing offense was going to do. His presence was so intimidating that, often, quarterbacks would avoid even looking his way. If the opponents tried to resolve the game through the air, the Ravens secondary didn't let up either. Rod Woodson, Chris McAllister, and Dwayne Starks form a trio of defensive backs that mix experience, technique, and aggression. And to make matters worse with the offenses, Baltimore didn't just prevent points. The defense also scored touchdowns. During that season, they had 4 defensive touchdowns, proving that this unit not only protected the end zone, but also knew how to punish the opponents on the scoreboard. In the playoffs, this defense took the intensity to another level. In 4 postseason games, Baltimore allowed only a single offensive touchdown. No team could advance. And when they tried, the Ravens' defense made sure to respond brutally. In Super Bowl 35, against the New York Giants, Baltimore simply destroyed any hope the opponent had. The Giants' offense couldn't score a single point. The only touchdown came on a kickoff return. And to make it clear that this defense also knew how to make an impact on the scoreboard, Dwayne Starks intercepted a pass and returned it for a touchdown, sealing the victory once and for all. This performance wasn't just dominant, it was historic. The impact of this defense was so great that it is still used as a reference when talking about legendary defensive units. Many analysts and former players argue that no other group reached a level of supremacy that the Ravens imposed that season. Even great defenses like the 1985 Bears or the 1970 Steelers were never as suffocating as Baltimore was in 2000. The title won in that Super Bowl wasn't just a victory for the Ravens. It was a crowning achievement of a style of play, a philosophy that became the DNA of the franchise. After that season, no one questioned it anymore. The Wall of Baltimore was real, and its presence would change the way teams approached defensive play in the NFL. But even with a historic defense, a team needs leaders to keep that mentality alive. And that's exactly what happened in the following years when 2 names became the true guardians of the Wall of Baltimore. And do you recognize the impact that this defense had on the Ravens' identity and on NFL history? Drop a comment if you also believe this was the most dominant defense of all time, or if you remember another unit that completely transformed a team with such power. Let's discuss it in the comments. When we talk about the Wall of Baltimore, we can't overlook 2 names that were crucial in making this defense so imposing: Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. These 2 players not only embodied the Ravens' defensive philosophy, but they became legends who are still remembered today as the franchise's greatest symbols. They weren't just exceptional players. They were leaders who transformed the way the Ravens' defense thought, acted, and, above all, dominated their opponents. Ray Lewis, with his uncontrollable energy, seemed to lead the team not only with his skill on the field, but with a presence that inspired everyone around him. He wasn't just a middle linebacker. He was the heartbeat of the defense. His game reading was unparalleled, and his ability to lead the front line, pressuring quarterbacks and stopping the run, left offenses powerless. But what truly made him unique was his mental leadership. On the field, Ray Lewis was more than just a player. He was the emotional leader, always ready to lift his teammates and guide them through the toughest moments. Alongside him, Ed Reed completed the picture with his brilliance at the backfield. While Ray Lewis was the brute force, Reed was the sharp mind that connected the entire defense. As a safety, Ed had a unique ability to anticipate plays, always seeming to be in the right place at the right time. His interceptions and ball returns were a nightmare for quarterbacks who knew that any mistake could be costly. Reed didn't just defend passes. He turned interceptions into opportunities for the team, often resulting in quick points for the Ravens. His ability to read plays before they even happened made him almost an extension of the opposing quarterback, anticipating their moves with remarkable precision. What made this duo so special was how their skills complemented each other. While Lewis dominated the physical game, being the vocal leader and the engine of the entire defense, Reed stayed in the background, controlling the game mentally and capturing every opportunity that came his way. Together, they formed a lethal combination that made the Wall of Baltimore even stronger, turning the defense into a true elite unit. However, the impact of Lewis and Reed wasn't only on the field. Both were true icons off the field, serving as role models for the entire franchise. Their personalities, stories of overcoming adversity, and passion for the game inspired generations of fans and players to follow in their footsteps. They became synonymous with grit, discipline, and leadership. Every time one of them made an impressive play, The entire stadium erupted with emotion, and the Wall of Baltimore became even more solid. The Wall of Baltimore wasn't just a defense that commanded respect for its physical strength, but also for its intelligence and ability to adapt to any situation. Ray Lewis and Ed Reed weren't just part of this defense. They were the main forces behind transforming the Ravens' defensive system into something unbeatable. They left a legacy that goes beyond numbers and titles, the legacy of a defensive mentality that never bowed down and always played with the same intensity. And of course, the lingering question is, with the departure of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, how did the Ravens manage to maintain the strength of their defense? How did the Wall of Baltimore continue to be unbeatable? The answer to that lies in the transition to a new generation of players. But the solid foundation that Lewis and Reed built was never forgotten. With the departure of these two legends, the Ravens needed new heroes. Did the defense manage to maintain the level of excellence after this transition? After the retirement of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, the Ravens faced a great challenge of maintaining the tradition of a dominant defense. These two icons had been crucial in building the Wall of Baltimore, but the franchise could not afford to lose such an essential identity to its philosophy. What happened next was admirable. The Ravens reinvented themselves, leveraging the solid foundation left by Lewis and Reed, while new talents began to emerge to keep the defense at the highest levels of excellence. One of the keys to this transition was the arrival of players like Terrell Suggs, who had already been an important piece of the defense since the beginning of the Lewis era, but now would become the face of the new generation. Suggs continued to be a quarterback's nightmare, combining physical strength with an aggressive mindset, always ready to pressure the passer. His presence on the field was vital in maintaining constant pressure on the passing game and ensuring the Ravens remained a defense that was difficult to overcome. Additionally, Suggs took on a leadership role, demonstrating that even without Lewis and Reed, the mentality of an unbeatable defense would continue to thrive in Baltimore. Another key name in this transition was C.J. Mosley, a linebacker who quickly became one of the best of his generation. His ability to cover the entire field and make decisive plays, especially in critical situations, made him a crucial pillar for the Ravens' defense in the years that followed. Mosley not only helped maintain defensive balance, but also brought a new energy to the unit, becoming a central figure on the front line. The Ravens' defense continued to rely on a solid linebacker core, and Mosley was a perfect example of how this philosophy was carried on. Furthermore, the work of the Ravens' coaching staff was essential in ensuring the Wall of Baltimore remained feared. The defense was always well coached and highly coordinated, with a focus on both mental and physical preparation, continuing to be one of the franchise's cornerstones. Even without the towering figures of Lewis and Reed, Baltimore managed to maintain excellence through smart tactical adjustments and a constant evolution of players. The defense became more versatile, able to adapt to different playing styles without losing its essence of always being in control. However, the true test of the Wall of Baltimore would remain strong. Without its biggest names came in 2018, when the Ravens assembled an unbeatable defense, led by players like Earl Thomas, who came to reinforce the secondary. Not only did he bring his experience and skill to the defensive line, but he also took on a leadership role within the locker room, inspiring the younger players to carry on the tradition. The chemistry between seasoned players and newcomers like Marlon Humphrey helped keep the Ravens' defense as one of the most formidable in the NFL, proving that the unbeatable defense identity was alive and well. Thus, despite the departure of two of the greatest players in franchise history, the Ravens were able to continue their path to success on defense. The Wall of Baltimore was not a defense dependent on two great names, but rather a culture that had been established and maintained over the years. The aggressive mentality, on-field leadership, and focus on mental and physical preparation ensured that the defense remained the team's foundation. The Ravens didn't need to replace Ray Lewis or Ed Reed. They needed to evolve from the foundation these legends had left behind. Now, with the continuation of this philosophy, the question remains, how will the Ravens continue to maintain their defense at the highest level of excellence, especially with the new challenges that arise each season? Well, let's move on to the fifth topic. But before we do, I noticed that you haven't left a like on this video yet. It's really important for YouTube to continue recommending my content to you, and this way, I'll keep bringing you the best content about the Baltimore Ravens. So, Go ahead and leave a like on this video. It's free. Thanks. Now, let's continue. One of the key factors to the Ravens' defensive success over the years has been the ability of their defensive coordinators to keep the wall of Baltimore at the top. The Ravens have always been known for their aggressive and intelligent defense, and this would not have been possible without the work of coaches who knew exactly how to maximize their players' potential. These defensive architects were essential in implementing the team's defensive philosophy and ensuring it continued to evolve over the years, ensuring that Baltimore never lost its defensive identity. Marvin Lewis was the first major figure responsible for laying the foundation of the Ravens' defense. When he arrived in 1996, the franchise was just beginning to establish itself, but his defensive system transformed the team into one of the most feared in the NFL. He taught the players the importance of positioning, play recognition, and tactical discipline. His impact was so significant that, even after his departure, Baltimore's defense continued to operate under the principles he implemented. The aggressive mentality, which became Lewis's trademark, was passed on to the following coordinators, maintaining the Ravens' defense at the highest level. After Marvin Lewis's departure, Rex Ryan took over as defensive coordinator in 2005 and quickly took the Ravens' defense to another level. Ryan brought an even more aggressive approach, with more frequent blitzes and constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Under his leadership, the Ravens' defense was not only tough to face, but unpredictable. Ryan knew how to use his players creatively, designing complex and unexpected schemes that confused opposing offenses. His philosophy of constant pressure and controlled chaos made Baltimore's defense even more lethal. After Rex Ryan's departure in 2008, Greg Mattison took over as defensive coordinator and continued the legacy of an aggressive and well-trained defense. He brought new coverage strategies and continued to develop the secondary, ensuring the wall of Baltimore remained solid. Under his direction, Baltimore remained one of the hardest defenses to beat, with a significant focus on developing standout players like Terrell Suggs, Haloti Ngata, and later, C.J. Mosley. Mattison was able to adapt the defense to the modern game, while still holding on to the roots of pressure and physical play. In more recent years, with Don Martindale taking charge, the Ravens' defense stayed true to this philosophy, but with a more dynamic and adaptable approach. Martindale brought a go big or go home mentality, emphasizing creative blitzes and constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Under his guidance, Baltimore was able to continue pushing the limits of defense, maximizing the talent of players like Marlon Humphrey and Earl Thomas. Martindale stood out not only for trusting his star players, but also for maximizing potential of lesser-known players, creating a defense that was always one step ahead of its opponents. The work of these defensive coordinators over the years is one of the main reasons the wall of Baltimore remains one of the most feared in the NFL. Each brought their own unique approach, but all maintained the core philosophy of an aggressive, intelligent defense that never gives its opponents a break. They understood that defense is not just a matter of talent, but also strategy, mental preparation, and adapting to circumstances. It is thanks to these architects that the Ravens' defensive identity was not only created, but also maintained and adapted over the years. Now, with a new cycle of players and coaches, how will the Ravens continue to maintain the quality of their defense and adapt to the new demands of the NFL, which is constantly evolving? Does the philosophy of aggression and adaptation still continue? The Ravens' aerial defense has always been one of their greatest strengths. From the early days of the Wall of Baltimore, the team's secondary stood out not only for their ability to cover receivers, but also for their capacity to force turnovers and change the course of a game. And this legacy is not recent. When we think of the names that have shaped the history of this defense, one of the first that comes to mind is Chris McAllister. The cornerback had a brilliant career with the Ravens and was one of the cornerstones of the defense in the early 2000s. His ability to intercept passes, block receptions, and cover the NFL's most talented receivers made him a true weapon against any passing attack. McAllister was a true anchor of Baltimore's aerial defense, and his ability to neutralize the league's top receivers helped transform the Ravens' secondary into an unbeatable unit. His combination of size, speed, and technique made it extremely difficult for opposing quarterbacks to make accurate passes. Not only did he cover impeccably, but he also had the ability to change the dynamic of the game with his interceptions and ball returns. McAllister's impact on the Ravens' history was so profound that he helped establish the standard of excellence for future generations of defensive backs in Baltimore. After McAllister, the Ravens continued to build an elite secondary. The work of Ozzie Newsome and the coaching staff was key in bringing in new talent to this defensive line. Marlon Humphrey, drafted in 2017, quickly emerged as one of the league's most promising cornerbacks. With his physical style and ability to cover receivers in any situation, Humphrey became one of the standout names in the Ravens' defense. He not only brought a new energy to the secondary, but also became a natural leader, always ready to shine in decisive moments. In addition to his ability to cover receivers, Marlon Humphrey became known for his aggressiveness and ability to force turnovers. Whether through interceptions, forced fumbles, or crucial tackles, he continued the legacy of his predecessor, McAllister, of changing the course of games with his presence. Humphrey's work is not just technical. He understands the defensive mentality that the team has built over the years and, as such, has been a cornerstone of this defense. His ability to stay calm under pressure, as we've seen in several decisive situations, makes him a key piece of the wall of Baltimore. But to complete this revolution in the secondary, another great name entered the scene: Marcus Peters. When the Ravens acquired Peters in a trade with the Rams, the team gained one of the most skilled cornerbacks and, undoubtedly, one of the most unpredictable. Peters is known for his ability to anticipate passes and his talent for intercepting balls, often in crucial moments. His mentality of always playing to make an impactful play fit perfectly into the Ravens' aggressive defensive style, adding yet another layer of unpredictability to the secondary. The Peters and Humphrey duo became one of the most feared in the NFL, with the two cornerbacks combining physical strength, intelligence, and aggression. What sets the Ravens secondary apart from other defenses in the NFL is the mentality that permeates the entire unit. It's not just about covering passes or preventing the opponent from completing plays. It's about an aggressive approach, where each player is constantly seeking a way to change the course of a game. Baltimore's secondary has been shaped to be intelligent, physical, and, above all, dominant. From Chris McAllister to Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, every player who has worn the Ravens uniform and played in the secondary has made their mark, keeping the wall of Baltimore solid and feared. With the continued growth of talents like Humphrey and Peters, will the Ravens be able to maintain their supremacy in the aerial game in the coming years, or will new challenges weaken this powerful unit? And if you've made it this far, leave a comment saying the Ravens secondary is unbeatable, so I'll know that you recognize the legacy of this aerial defense, which continues to be one of the best in the NFL. Continuing, the Ravens' defensive line has always been one of the most formidable and imposing units in the entire NFL. Since the days of Haloti Ngata, the Ravens set a standard of strength, endurance, and control in the trenches that became the foundation of their defense. Ngata, with his impressive size and technical ability, was a central pillar of this line, providing not only pressure on the quarterback, but also an unparalleled ability to stop the run, a crucial aspect of any defense. His presence was an impenetrable wall in the middle of the line, making it extremely difficult for opposing offenses to advance through Baltimore's offensive line. With Ngata's departure, the Ravens didn't lose momentum. The franchise always knew how to replace legends with equally capable players who could keep the defensive line strong and unbeatable. One of the great names that emerged was Brandon Williams, a robust defensive tackle with enormous physical power. His ability to control the game in the middle of the line, stop the run, and create pressure in the quarterback's pocket made him a key piece in keeping the defense solid. The Ravens' defensive line continued to be a true wall of strength, and Williams, with his dominant posture, was essential in ensuring that opponents had to worry about a line that left no room for mistakes. Moreover, the impact of players like Matthew Judon, an explosive pass rusher, was crucial in ensuring that the Ravens' offensive line was multifaceted and capable of dominating in all areas. Judon, with his ability to pressure quarterbacks and force turnovers, became a constant threat to opposing offenses. His speed, combined with the strength of the defensive line, gave the Ravens an advantage in both the passing and running games. Judon fit perfectly into the Ravens' defensive style, bringing aggression and creativity, allowing the team to maintain its characteristic never-say-die attitude, regardless of the situation. In recent years, the Ravens' offensive line continued to evolve with the arrival of new talents, such as Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe. Campbell, a veteran with a long career in the NFL, brought experience and even higher level of physical play to the Ravens line. His ability to cause disruptions in the opposing offense and to lead in the locker room was an immeasurable asset. Wolfe, on the other hand, helped provide more depth and resistance to the line, ensuring the defense continued to be dominant in various situations. Together, these players added a new layer of strength and intelligence, guaranteeing that Baltimore's defensive line remained as imposing as ever. However, the secret of the Ravens' defensive line is not just in physical strength. The way the coaching staff utilizes the group's speed and intelligence is also crucial. The line is not just a block of players focused on stopping the run. It's a unit designed to adapt and pressure quarterbacks in any situation. The work of the defensive coordinator, drawing up plays that maximize the line's ability to disrupt and pressure the opposing offense, is one of the keys to the continued success of this unbeatable defense. Over the years, the Ravens have always known how to balance brute force with refined technique, creating a defensive line that not only stops the run, but also makes opposing quarterbacks fearful. Each player, from Haloti Ngata to the current leaders like Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams, has contributed to keeping Baltimore's defensive line at the top of the league. The evolution of this unit, with the adaptation of new strategies and the inclusion of new talents, proves that the Wall of Baltimore will remain solid as long as the Ravens stay committed to their elite defensive legacy. Now, with this increasingly refined and dominant defensive line, will the Ravens be able to continue controlling the line of scrimmage and maintain their defensive supremacy for more years to come, or will new challenges put this dominance to the test? Now, with everything we've discussed, it's clear the Wall of Baltimore is one of the most dominant and intelligent defenses in NFL history. It's not just about raw strength, but about strategy adaptation and, above all, the mentality of never giving up. From the days of Haloti Ngata to the era of Marlon Humphrey, the Ravens' defense has always been a cornerstone of the team, shaping the team's identity over the years. Its importance to Baltimore is undeniable, and the Ravens cannot afford to let this legacy weaken. The real question is, how will the Ravens maintain this standard of excellence and continue dominating NFL defenses in the future? If you also believe that the Ravens' defense is the foundation of their success and that the Wall of Baltimore must remain firm, share your opinion in the comments and show how crucial it is for the team.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself. See you there, and until the next video, go Flock.